glad to be sitting here with you, Pastor Brown. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do out here in Atlanta.
Well, born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida. I live out here in Atlanta. I've been out here in Atlanta since about between 2001 and 2002. I'm out here with my family, married, I have kids, and so I'm out here just doing the work of ministry. I'm also a gospel rap artist. I came out here musically first before I even started walking in this truth. And so that's what kind of drove me out here. I got in some trouble in Florida, came out here, and just to be able to start afresh and anew. And this is where I met the Heavenly Father. So, and I started doing, growing up, you know about God,
Right.
you know about Yah, but it's knowing about Him is different from knowing Him. And so this is where I begin to know Him. And so I've been doing this, ministry since fully, probably around maybe 2006, I guess. Faithful Christian to the Christian church.
So that's about 15 years. That's a long time.
Yeah, about 15 years. And so just been very faithful in the church. I served faithfully there. And so always growing up, I kind of knew about we were the children of Israel on my father's side.
So in your family, this is not new to you, being an Israelite, you being that being a part of your DNA and your heritage. This wasn't brand new.
Well, not so much, but it wasn't like a daily conversation. I lived with my mom, so my mom and my father were separated. So,
Okay.
But I heard about it and knew about it, growing up as a kid, talking to like uncles and stuff like that. But I was still raised by my mom in a Christian church, and so and it was a Southern Baptist church. So therefore, I still understood about head coverings. I still understood about the commandments, or whatnot. So that my mom never wore pants, things like that. So I understood from that perspective in the Baptist church, it was still some form of commandment teaching, that sin is something that exists and we shouldn't partake in. And so it wasn't until later on I came here, and then I met my uncle who gave me a Bible which had the Apocrypha in it. And so he was a Baptist preacher, but he was conscious. And so it came back from my mother's side. I didn't know my uncle was who was a conscious preacher at the time, but he was Baptist. He dropped a lot of knowledge on me before he passed, and then I still wasn't really like walking in it completely. It wasn't until later on is when I really got an understanding of how to serve in the church and got an understanding of a lot of foundational things, integrity and things like that within the church that I came up in. And so it was easier for me to transition. I don't really like to use the word transition, but that's what it was, into walking into the heritage that I embrace. How to be proud to be a black man, and how to be strong and love your family and work hard and be faithful, to Yah. So that was something that really helped me in the walk that I have now. It's all about integrity and making sure that we understand that we have a great responsibility as believers when it comes down to carrying this Bible.
So, Pastor, you started in the Baptist church, right? And for how long were you in the Baptist church?
Probably from birth to about 13.
13.
And then my mom transitioned to apostolic.
Okay.
And then from there we went to Kojic, which is kind of a form of apostolic.
So you're getting stricter.
Yes.
Everything's getting more
Yes.
strict as you get older.
Yes.
Okay.
And then when I left, the last place that I left was Kojic. And then I came here and I became a part of an apostolic prophetic church. And so, which is another aspect of prophetic gifts and things like that. And I served there for 10 years straight.
Wow.
And actually, he was the one that encouraged me to start Boom. And so, matter of fact, the first launch service that I had, he preached at that launch service.
Wow.
And so I was able to see that, and he pushed me in those areas. And so once we started the congregation, I kind of already knew it. But also, he was a professor at a seminary school here in Atlanta. And so he would challenge me on my doctrine constantly. He would call me at 1 o'clock in the morning, you know, hey, what you doing? Hey, you know.
Those are the best mentors and best teachers,
yes,
by the way. Yeah,
absolutely. You know, how does the law, you know, and how does grace, you know.
How does spirit, right?
Yeah,
Where's the spirit fit, right?
He was challenging me on certain scriptures and things because he understood that the message that I would be presenting is going to be not popular on both sides. And so he challenged me doctrinally, and he'll prepare me to become the master, moray, or the pastor that I am now. So now I've been through all of the doctrines, I've been through all of the challenges, and so I know what they're going to ask, and I already know what the response is.
Okay. What I'm curious to know is, what was the transitional moment for you that made you kind of, I know you're still a part of a Christian congregation, but you lead this congregation as well. So what was the transitional, pivotal moment for you that said, like, I want to be doing this now full time, or I want to be involved in this more?
It wasn't an aspect where it was like, you know, let me just go start this. So it was a process. It was like gradually moving to that, and the more I elevated, the more it was the encouragement of my pastor at the time to say, okay, it's time for you to go. And so when it was time for me, mind you, at that time I had already been doing a lot of traveling. I have a tour called the Truth Tour, and I was teaching a lot of apologetics against Kemetic doctrine. And so during that process, to go and teach against Kemet, you have to kind of prove who we are, because the Kemetic doctrine teaches that we are from Ham and that we are Egyptian, or we should pay homage to Kemet. And so tearing that down always brought the question, well, if we're not Hamitic people, then who are we? And so it kind of created an environment where I didn't want to go there, but I had to present it, because if they're asking questions, I can't leave them hanging. And so I went to my first tour event, and that question came up, and I didn't want to go into it, but it kept coming up. And so therefore I eventually said, forget it. It's a part of my PowerPoint. And so I saved it to the end of the PowerPoint, because the question always at the end proved that we weren't from Ham. And so when the question asked, who were we? Then that's when I was able to go into it. And from there, it just became a snowball effect. People kept asking. And even some of the pastors that invited me, they was like, you know, quiet as kept. I knew we were, you know. And so it was like, and it was more encouragement. Like, hey, go, you might need to go teach. You know, you have a calling, or, you know, the Spirit on you to be able to teach it with balance and where people can understand it. And so that's how we come to this point. You have Noah, of course. You know, the world was replenished, so it had to be replenished by someone. So you had Ham, which would be the father of all the dark races. And at the end of the day, you have Shem, who also is a part of dark races. And then you have Japheth, who also birthed children, which are identified as Gentiles in Genesis chapter 10. And so through them, you have the birthing of all these different people and nations. And so through that breakdown, we come to the point where Canaan is cursed, and henceforth the reason why they say that blackness was a curse, which it wasn't. And so when you get to Shem, it's very difficult in some aspects to like to pinpoint, because of the fact that Shem has a lot of different shades. The scripture teaches that Shem's children are like speckled birds, you know, meaning that they're your complexion, they're my complexion, they're darker than me, you know, some could be even lighter. And so when we get into that, I think it boils down to looking at prophecy. And also you have DNA now to line it up. Once you look at the DNA and you line up the prophecy with the DNA, then it's clear, you can see who's who. But even in that aspect, the children of Israel are also identified not only by curses, but also by blessings. They were always blessed, and they were also cursed, meaning that even when they went into captivity, at some point in time when they came out, the blessings rained on them until they act up again. And so we have to look at two different aspects to identify who is who. And the curses is very significant. but also the blessing is also a sign as well. So I hope that kind of answered a little bit
No,
of it.
it's good. I mean, I'm just going to deviate away from my notes real quick because you talked about how Shem, like the speckled birds, that's how scripture kind of describes the children of the sons and daughters of Shem, right? So how light are we talking? So am I the lightest that it can be, or is it possible that even lighter than myself can be a part of like the sons and daughters of Shem?
Yes, it's very possible.
Okay.
Because the reason being is I have a cousin who is, if you saw her walking down the street, you would say, oh, that's a white girl, but her father is black and her mom is white, but she took more of her mother's complexion. And so this is the difficult part about trying to identify and say, okay, definitely this person is European versus, you just really don't know unless you talk to that person. You wouldn't know that her, and then also you have some who are dark as me, and their father is European or white, and their mother is black, but they took on their mother complexion. And so you'll say, well, that's my brother, I embrace you. So it's kind of,
it's hard. And so that's why the DNA factor is so big because, with all these DNA tests that are coming out now, people doing these, like you spit in a tube or whatever and send it off to some foreign factory, where they get to tell you, per se, where you're from. So it's very possible that someone who looks white is, and I'm wondering.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
Absolutely.
So it's possible that for someone who looks white to even be counted among the sons or daughters of Shem.
Absolutely.
Wow. Haven't heard that from an Israelite. This is brand new. Haven't heard that. Because when it was broken down to me, it sounded like, that the children of promise or those that are Israelites are identified by curses, right? Because we can clearly see that those that are under the curse, right, that have gone into captivity, there's been slavery, the lynchings, there's been, oppression. You look anywhere you go in the world, black people, darker skinned people are just oppressed, right?
Absolutely.
And so my issue was that the only way that we were able to identify was through the curses, but now you're talking about even blessings as well.
Yeah, that's the whole aspect of Deuteronomy 28. The curses is the condition to not being obedient to the contract. And so the beginning of the contract starts off with blessings all the way through verse 14.
That's right.
And so these are things, and Israel partook in those things. I mean, look at King David, look at Solomon. All of them, they all had some form of, but look at Job, even though he wasn't an Israelite per se, he was a Hebrew, but he wasn't an Israelite. When you look at that, Israel has been blessed and they have been cursed. So it's a part of the condition and or the contract. If you don't obey the contract, this is the situation that you're going to be in. But I mean, as far as even in the lands, if we say that America is a land of captivity, I mean, even look at Babylon. Some of Israel didn't even want to leave Babylon because they were being blessed. So they're like, why would we want to leave here?
Right.
So at the end of the day, the Father is gracious even in the lands of your captivity. He still has provided for us. You see what I'm saying? And so I'm not going to bring that indictment against him that he hasn't.
Pastor, do you believe that the reason why, because when I'm in New York, when I'm in DC, there's a corner usually where you have these young brothers. I haven't seen any young sisters out there, but you have these young brothers who are out there and they are coming at it with a fire, man. Like I've never seen anything like it. And the intensity and trying to talk with them, trying to connect with them, even being called out by them. Like I'm just passing by and they're like, let me talk to you, woman. Like, what if God said that you weren't equal to a man? Would you follow him? Would you obey him? And I'm like, well, does God really say that? Like, can we talk about that? And not being able to get a word in edgewise. Could it be that, like, and I'm wondering that the anger, the intensity, the vehemence is because they attribute a lot of the kind of the state of Black America or Black Canada to this disobedience. And so in an attempt to combat that, going into exile again or something like that, wanting exile to be over. Apparently it's over. It's coming to be over in 2000. That's a teaching, right? But could it be that that's why there's this anger, this passion?
I think in some aspects they have a point. When you look on television and you see, police brutality, or you see conditions of our neighborhoods, and you see politicians and those different, things. It's hard to get a job, but yet someone that you're more qualified than
Yep.
gets the job, and all of these different experiences and things that's going on. So I think they do have a point. Sometimes I think it's not channeled properly in the fact that I don't view it so much as blaming the white man. I view it as looking from the scriptures as though we're in this position because of our forefathers, meaning that if they had kept the covenant, we wouldn't be in this position. And so at the end of the day, because we were supposed to be in the head, and we're the ones supposed to be in the lender and whatnot. And so at the end of the day, when I look at all these different things that's going on, we have a role to play as a people to get back to keeping his commandments, but also at the same time, the Most High told us, I'm going to send a nation against you, meaning that this nation wasn't thinking about us. But he gave them my GPS coordinates and say, they're over there, and this is how I'm going to chastise them.
Wow.
I'm going to use another nation. He's always done that.
As an
Every
instrument.
captivity,
Yep.
he used
Assyria.
another nation. Absolutely. To chastise them and say, okay, now you ready? Are you going to act right? Because this was in the contract before it actually happened. And Israel agreed to it. And so soon as, couldn't even let the ink dry on the paper good enough. And all of a sudden, they're making gods in Exodus 20 and all these different things while the Father is giving the commandments to Moshe. So here we are. The only way to make sure that we do this thing properly, we have to go through Christ. There's no other way. If we don't go through HaMashiach, we can't do it on our own. And so this is why it's so important that we teach salvation through HaMashiach. And if we don't do that, then we do ourselves a disservice. And not only that, we actually go against Yah's commandments.
Talk to me a little bit about the responsibility that young African American, African Canadian. Let me ask you this: how do people of color, a part of this awakening, we're going to come to the term awakening as well, want to be referred to as? Because I notice there's a lot of, I don't want to be called black. I don't want to be so, because it is a racial, it's a societal construct, right? People made it up in order to control and oppress. So what do you all want to be referred to as? What's the best nomenclature?
For me, I'm a different type brother, so I can't say I'm going to speak for everybody. But I'll say for me, if you want to call me Israelite, if you want to call me Hebrew, if you want to call me Hebrew Israelite, I don't even care if you say black Hebrew Israelite. And the reason being is because it's a byword. Right. And at the end of the day, it doesn't define me.
Okay.
When we start looking at different perspectives and looking at different aspects and situations that he was in, dealing with other nations, such as the Roman centurion, you didn't see him saying, get away from me, white boy, or get away from me, Edomite, or anything of that nature. When we start looking and understanding that the commandments from the very beginning, before there was ever even an Israelite, the commandments was for mankind. And so Israel is being taken and used as a tool in his hand to show the world, this is how you walk this out, because man is very relational to one another. And so you don't see him talking about Edom. You don't see him talking about different things that we find ourselves talking about. Even when he gave the commission to the apostles or the Talmudim, you don't see him telling them to go out and proclaim certain things. He tells them to go out and make disciples. Just teach what I taught. Do what I do. Walk as I walked. The integrity and the essence that I have. Those are the things that are going to present opportunities of witness. If you walk a certain kind of way according to the scriptures, people are going to ask, hey man, what's up with you? Why do you do that? Why you eat differently? Why do you, something different about you? What's going on with you? It creates an opportunity for evangelism.
There's a lot of discussion about the term awakening and the term movement. Can you talk to me a little bit about why there is maybe a dislike for the term movement and an appreciation for the term awakening? Because
movements die. Marcus Garvey had a movement, it died. Malcolm X had a movement, it died. Martin Luther King had a movement, it died. The awakening is something that doesn't die. It's not my awakening, it's Yah's awakening. And so when we look at that, it's not going to go anywhere. So we have to understand that this is not going. Now there'll be different aspects, different perspectives. I mean, even the time when Christ was on scene, you had the disciples of Christ flowing in the Spirit, teaching in a way. But then you also had the disciples of the Pharisees and their teachers. And so the difference is, in our day and age, we have to recognize and understand that it's the demonstration and it's the fruit that's going to determine. It's not even the term Christian. It's not even the term Israelite. It's not any of that. Are you a sheep or are you a goat? How do you determine that? By fruit. And so at the end of the day, when we start looking at it, looking at the character, the essence, and the fruit is going to be there. If there's no fruit, there's no character, there's no essence, then the only thing we can do is come to the conclusion that you're a devil.
Wow. With the rise of, more social awareness for different groups, right? So you have like LGBTQIA and you have women's rights. What's the role of the Israelite as it pertains and relates to those two groups?
Well,
because Israelites are not immune they're not immune to different people or different orientations.
Right.
We all experience, sin hits all of us,
right.
Life hits all of us, society hits all of us. So what is the role of the Israelite in that context of social awareness, social justice, all of that? Like, because I think for me, one of the biggest pet peeves that I have is that a lot of the times I feel like when it comes to African Americans, African Canadians, we march when it suits us, like we are on the front lines when it's for Black rights, Black Lives Matter, that's when we stand up, that's when we say something. But what is the role of Israelites in the realm of social justice in 2019? Well,
it's all, I mean, when you teach from the scriptures, every day you're involved with social justice. So I can't speak against something that I myself partake in. So and then I have to also understand that this is not, or presented in such a way that it's not my personal perspective. I have to say what's right and what's wrong according to the scriptures. And so at the end of the day in 2019, it's always been, speak against sin, rebuke, reprove, love, and correct and connect. All of those aspects have always been what we're supposed to do. So I don't look at it as something new or something new on the table. Every year it's a constant flowing thing.
What are the gender roles like in the awakening?
It is very
diverse, depending on where you go?
Depending on what Israelite,
So there are many camps of Israelites.
Yeah, there are camps, and then there are those who identify as not being a part of a camp.
Okay, because I saw some of that in the comments, like no West something.
One West.
No one West theology.
Yeah, no one West theology. Yeah, those are our brothers that people identify as camps. It's mostly the, I guess many would say the brothers that's on the corner. The non-camps would be mostly those who are balanced in their approach. Both of them have a purpose. And so, but within the camp structure, from what I've seen, it's not too many sisters are able to, speak or, say certain things. It's kind of like, you just learn from, your husband and whatever he teaches you, that's kind of different. Within the balanced community, we hold true to, number 6, dealing with the male and the female who are able to partake in Nazirite vows, as well as also Joel, the prophet, where he talks about the Spirit being poured out upon the male and the female, and they shall prophesy. And a part of prophesying, you have to teach. You have to present in a certain way. Now, we understand creation. We understand that there were no men in the temples, but the simple fact, women would have a cycle, and so it was considered unclean, so they couldn't really be in the temple during that time, and the temple had to be open 24/7. So.
So do the balanced community of Israelites, do they permit a woman to teach in the pulpit?
Yes, some of them do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they permit a woman to teach in the pulpit on her cycle?
Yeah, within the balanced community, there aren't many moras who
There are
are
more mores.
Yeah, who are leading congregations.
Wow. Why is that?
Well, because many sisters in the Hebrew community, they don't actually want to lead. So it's not like they're actually saying, hey, I want to lead. I don't think it's that many within the Christian church that actually just wants to lead. And to prove, there's some in every area that just say, hey, I'm going to show them that, I can teach, but there's...
Like me. No, I'm just kidding.
But I mean, the teaching part it's a difference in...
You are my sunshine on a